The spaceship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of Zephora, a world that had long been the subject of Earth's secret studies. Kale tightened his grip on the railing of the small shuttle, his heart racing with excitement and nervousness. He was young, yes, but he had trained for this mission for years. Humans were not used to traveling so far, but Kale felt the pride of carrying his species' hope on his shoulders. Outside the viewport, Zephora's landscape unfolded like a dream. Floating islands drifted silently in the sky, their edges glowing with a soft blue light. Rivers of liquid crystal flowed between the islands, reflecting strange, radiant colors. Towering structures, some as tall as mountains, rose from the ground, built with materials that shimmered like silver and glass. The entire planet seemed alive, as if it was breathing. The shuttle touched down on a landing platform near a city that looked both alien and beautiful. Kale took a deep breath and stepped out, feeling the soft, glowing soil beneath his boots. The air was different, thicker, charged with energy. His human senses tingled with the unfamiliar, yet there was something welcoming about it. Kale's team had expected scouts, diplomats, or even scientists to meet them. Instead, a massive spaceship descended from the sky, larger than any Kale had seen before. It hovered silently, then touched the ground in a graceful landing. The crowd that gathered around the platform seemed to hold its breath. A ramp extended from the ship, and a figure appeared at the top. She moved with a grace that caught Kale's attention immediately. Her uniform shimmered in colors that shifted as she moved, blending beauty and authority. She was tall, elegant, and her eyes shone with intelligence and curiosity. Kyle's breath caught. She was not just anyone. She was Princess Lyra, the daughter of Zephora's ruling family. He had seen images of her in the mission files, but nothing could compare to seeing her in person. The princess looked directly at Kyle. Time seemed to slow. And then, in a voice that carried clearly over the platform, she said, "He will be mine." The words struck Kyle like lightning. He froze, unsure if he had heard correctly. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Humans exchanged confused glances, while Zephorans gasped. Kale's commander stepped forward, ready to intervene, but Lyra raised a hand, her gaze never leaving Kale. Kale felt a strange mix of emotions, shock, confusion, and a sudden thrill. He had not expected this at all. Was it a challenge, a political statement, or something else entirely? Lyra descended the ramp, each step measured, her presence commanding attention. Even the wind seemed to bend around her. Kale noticed subtle signs that she was observing him closely. Her head tilted slightly, her eyes narrowing and widening in rapid curiosity. She was not just speaking, she was choosing. And Kyle realized that this choice carried importance far beyond personal interest. "Commander," Kyle's voice finally broke the silence, steadying himself. Do we respond?" The commander shook his head. "Wait. Watch. Understand first." Lyra stopped a few meters away from Kale. She studied him for a long moment, her eyes like twin stars, glowing with intensity. Kale felt a warmth that was not from the sun. There was power in her presence, but also something softer, curiosity, maybe even admiration. Then she spoke again, softer this time, yet every word still rang with authority. "You are different, strong, clever, unafraid. I want to know more about you." Kyle swallowed. He had trained for diplomacy, for strategy, for combat, but nothing had prepared him for being singled out in this way by an alien princess on her homeworld. Still, he straightened his back, forcing confidence into his posture. I am Kale, from Earth," he said. "I am here to learn about your world and to offer friendship." Lyra's eyes sparkled with interest. She smiled faintly, a smile that seemed both kind and challenging. Friendship? We shall see, she said. But first, you must survive Zephora. Many try, many fail, few impress. Before Kale could ask what she meant, the crowd's attention shifted. Zephoran attendants began guiding humans and aliens alike into the city. Kale followed, his mind racing. He knew that every step he took on Zephora would be watched, studied, and judged. Lyra's declaration was no idle comment. It was a signal that he had caught the eye of the most powerful family on the planet. As Kale walked through the glowing streets, he marveled at the architecture. Buildings twisted and flowed like liquid metal. Roads hovered above ground, and strange creatures, some animal, some mechanical, moved with ease among the citizens. The air was alive with light and color, with energy that seemed to respond to thought. Humans would have called it magic if it were not so precise and scientific. Kale felt eyes on him at every corner. Zephorans whispered in their musical language, casting curious glances in his direction. Even here, in the heart of their city, Lyra's presence seemed to follow him like a shadow. Finally, they reached a large plaza where a statue of Zephora's founder stood. The princess halted and turned to face Kyle fully. "Here, you will rest tonight," she said. "Tomorrow your trials begin. But remember, human, this world is not gentle. Your strength alone will not keep you alive." Kyle nodded, a mix of determination and anxiety in his eyes. "I will do my best." Lyra's smile returned, enigmatic and full of promise. "Then let us see if you are worthy of Zephora and perhaps of me." As Kale looked at her, he realized that this mission was no longer just about exploration. It had become a test of humanity itself, and somehow he knew that surviving Zephora and understanding the princess would change him forever. The night fell over the floating islands, casting glowing shadows across the plaza. Kyle stood quietly, gazing at the alien city, feeling both small and infinite. He was a human, alone in a world unlike any he had ever imagined. Yet for the first time, he felt a sense of destiny. Whatever challenges awaited him, he would face them, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. And somewhere in the palace above, Princess Lyra watched him, her thoughts unreadable, her choice clear. Kale had entered Zephora, and the world, and its princess, would never be the same again. The next morning, Kale awoke to the gentle hum of Zephora's energy flowing through the city. His room in the palace was unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth. Walls made of smooth, glowing crystal shifted colors as he moved, reflecting the light of the floating islands outside. Kale could hear distant voices and laughter outside, but one presence dominated his thoughts: Princess Lyra. By the time he had dressed in the light armor provided by the palace attendants, a small group of Zephorans had gathered in the courtyard, including Lyra herself. She stood on a raised platform, her posture commanding attention, her eyes scanning the group until they fell on Kale. The princess's gaze seemed to pierce through him, testing him silently. "Welcome to Zephora," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. "You have been chosen to participate in our ancient trials of honor. Few outsiders ever face them. Fewer still succeed. Humans are not known for endurance or wisdom on our world, but perhaps you will prove different." Kale stepped forward, keeping his shoulders straight. "I am ready," he said, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. Lyra smiled faintly. "Very well. Today you will face the first trial, the trial of wisdom." She gestured to a giant structure nearby. It was a massive labyrinth of glowing pathways and floating platforms hovering over a lake of liquid crystal. Navigate this maze, solve the puzzles within, reach the center before sunset. Only those who combine intelligence and insight may succeed. Kyle studied the maze. To him, it looked impossible at first glance. Floating paths shifted unpredictably, holographic symbols changed as one approached them, and glowing barriers blocked certain passages. Yet, Kale noticed a pattern. The symbols were not random. They followed logic, much like Earth puzzles he had studied in his youth. With a deep breath, Kale stepped onto the first platform. It floated upward smoothly, as if responding to his weight. He moved carefully, observing the symbols and testing paths. Humans were adaptable, he realized. He could combine intuition, observation, and trial and error faster than the Zephorans expected. As he progressed, Kale noticed subtle shifts in the labyrinth. Platforms moved in ways that seemed almost alive, and the puzzles became more complex. A section required him to align floating crystal beams to reflect light into specific channels. Kyle remembered physics lessons from Earth: angles, reflection, and refraction. Within minutes, he solved the puzzle, advancing further into the maze. Meanwhile, Princess Lyra watched from above. She did not intervene, but her eyes followed his every move. She noticed how Kale remained calm even when a platform swayed dangerously over the liquid crystal lake. She saw how he analyzed each puzzle with patience rather than rushing. Humans were unpredictable, but Kale's mind was clever in a way that impressed her. Hours passed, and Kale continued to navigate the labyrinth. At one point, he encountered a group of Zephyrin challengers who had begun the trial earlier. They were skilled, but rigid in their thinking. They tried to push Kale aside, claiming that humans could not understand Zephyrin logic. Kale smiled faintly and suggested a new approach to align the final beams, combining human reasoning with Zephyrin design. The alien challengers paused, curious. With Kale's method, the puzzle solved itself within moments. They stared at him in surprise, and even Kale felt a sense of pride. This was more than survival. It was humans showing their unique perspective on a world that had never seen them as equals. At last, Kale reached the center of the labyrinth. A small pedestal rose from the ground, glowing softly. He placed his hand on it, and the maze shifted again, forming a bridge that led directly back to the courtyard. Kale stepped onto the bridge, and as he approached the platform where Lyra stood, the crowd erupted in applause and gasps. Humans had not only navigated the labyrinth, they had done so with grace and intelligence. Lyra descended from her platform, walking toward Kale with a measured pace. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes sparkled with approval. "You have done well," she said, her voice calm but full of meaning. "Humans are indeed different, clever, bold, and capable of seeing solutions that even we sometimes miss." Kale bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Princess Lyra. I only did what I could. Your world is incredible, and your people are wise." Lyra's smile widened slightly. "Perhaps there is hope for cooperation between our worlds," she said. "But trials are not yet over. Tomorrow you will face the trial of courage. Your mind has passed the first test. Your heart and bravery will be tested next." Kyle nodded. Though he was tired, he felt a surge of determination. The trials were not only tests of skill, they were opportunities to prove humanity's strength in ways the Zephorans had never imagined. That evening, as Kale rested in the palace, he reflected on the day. He realized that humanity's advantage was not just strength or intelligence, it was adaptability, creativity, and courage. Even the most skilled Zephyrans could become trapped by tradition, but Kale's perspective was fresh, unpredictable, and valuable. Meanwhile, Princess Lyra watched him from her private chambers. She had observed many challengers, but Kale was different. He was not the strongest, the fastest, or the most experienced, yet he possessed something rare, a combination of bravery, intellect, and integrity. Her interest was no longer casual curiosity. It had become something personal. That night, As Kale lay on his glowing bed, he wondered what the trials would bring next. He thought of the floating islands, the glowing cities, and the mysterious energy that flowed through Zephora. But most of all, he thought of Lyra's words. "He will be mine." Kale did not yet understand what she meant, but he felt a strange sense of destiny. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would meet them with courage. Humanity had arrived on Zephora, and Kale was determined to show that humans could stand tall, even among the stars. And somewhere above, Princess Lyra smiled, knowing that the young human warrior had passed the first trial, not just by reaching the center of a maze, but by proving the unique strength of his kind. Tomorrow, the trial of courage would begin, and Kale would face it knowing that the eyes of a princess and the hopes of his world were upon him. The sun rose over Zephora's floating islands, painting the sky in colors Kale had no names for. Today was the trial of courage, and already a sense of tension ran through the palace. Humans had rarely faced these trials, and Kale's unexpected success in the trial of wisdom had made him a figure of curiosity and quiet envy among the Zephoran challengers. Kale entered the courtyard where the trial would begin. Princess Lyra stood at the center, her posture calm, her eyes fixed on him. Around her, a small council of nobles watched silently, their expressions a mixture of intrigue and skepticism. Kyle noticed that some of them whispered to one another, their words sharp with doubt. "The trial of courage," Lyra announced, her voice carrying over the plaza, "will test not your mind, but your heart. You will face challenges that force you to confront fear, danger, and uncertainty. Only those who act with bravery, wisdom, and compassion may succeed." Kyle took a deep breath. He had trained for combat, for survival, for strategy. But courage was more than strength. It was about facing the unknown and standing firm even when others wavered. He nodded silently, signaling he was ready. The trial began with a large platform rising high into the sky. Kyle looked down and realized the first challenge was a jump to a series of floating ledges over a deep chasm of glowing energy. The ledges moved slightly, some rotating, others tilting. Below him, the liquid crystal lake shimmered menacingly. One misstep could mean serious injury, or worse. Kyle clenched his fists and leaped. Each jump required timing, focus, and careful observation. He noticed that the Zephoran challengers followed a rigid pattern, moving mechanically. Kyle, however, adapted. He calculated distances, anticipated shifts, and used the momentum of each leap to maintain balance. Slowly, he advanced, his confidence growing with each successful step. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the platform ahead. A group of rival nobles had sent mechanical creatures to block him, a test designed to intimidate and perhaps injure. Kale's heart pounded, but he did not falter. Using his human ingenuity, he noticed a pattern in the creature's movements and timed his jumps perfectly to avoid them. One of the machines swung too quickly, and Kyle rolled to the side, narrowly escaping. From above, Lyra watched with interest. She did not intervene, though her eyes followed every move. She noted how Kyle remained calm under pressure, analyzing the threat rather than panicking. This was not brute force. It was human strategy and adaptability at its finest. Kyle reached a ledge where a holographic riddle appeared, suspended in mid-air. It was a test of moral courage, a projection of innocent Zephoran children trapped in a dangerous situation. Kyle had to decide quickly whether to risk himself to save them or continue forward. He did not hesitate. He calculated a way to use the platforms and energy beams to reach the children safely, guiding them to solid ground before resuming his path. The crowd below gasped. Humans were not expected to show both bravery and compassion in the same action. Kale's decision demonstrated something the Zephorans rarely saw: courage tempered by empathy. Even some of the skeptical nobles looked impressed, their whispers turning to cautious admiration. But the trial was far from over. Next came a bridge of light, suspended over a storm of swirling energy. Kyle had to cross it while avoiding bursts of electricity that could throw him into the glowing chasm below. Each step required balance and precision. He remembered lessons from Earth, breathing techniques, concentration, and trust in one's instincts. Slowly, carefully, he advanced. The bursts of energy came closer and faster, but Kale adjusted, leaping and ducking in perfect timing. As he reached the far side, Kale noticed movement in the shadows. A group of Xiferan nobles had climbed to the platform, intending to confront him directly. They saw him as an outsider, a human who should not succeed. Kale's heart raced, but he did not back down. Humans were not known for fear in moments that mattered most. They adapted, they persevered, and they could inspire others through action. One of the nobles lunged, attempting to strike Kyle. Using his speed and agility, Kale dodged and guided the attacker into a trap of his own design, a net of energy that immobilized him safely. The other nobles paused, surprised by the human's ingenuity and composure. Kale continued forward, unyielding, refusing to let intimidation stop him. Finally, he reached the center of the trial arena. A large platform rose from the ground, glowing with a serene light. Standing on it, Kale realized he had faced fear, danger, and even attempted sabotage, and had prevailed. The crowd erupted in applause, cheering not only for Kale's success, but for the spirit of humanity he represented. Princess Lyra descended to stand beside him. Her gaze was sharp but proud. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have faced fear, protected the innocent, and acted with wisdom. Humans are stronger than I imagined. You have proven your courage, Kale, and you have shown that your kind is capable of greatness." Kyle bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Princess Lyra. I only did what I thought was right. Your world is incredible, and I am honored to walk it." Lyra's smile softened. "You are more than a guest here, Kale. You are a symbol. You have the heart of a warrior, the mind of a strategist, and the courage of one who will protect what is right. But remember, courage is not only for trials, it is needed in life, in leadership, and in choices that will affect many." That night, Kale reflected on the trial. He had faced danger that would have unnerved many Zephorans, yet he had survived through skill, bravery, and human ingenuity. He realized that his strength was not just physical, it was the ability to think, adapt, and act under pressure. Humans were capable of achieving great things, even on a world so alien. From her palace tower, Lyra observed Kale again. She had seen many challengers come and go, but Kale's actions had left a deep impression. He was not only brave, he was different. He carried the essence of humanity, curiosity, adaptability, empathy, and courage. Her interest had grown into admiration, and perhaps something more. Tomorrow would bring the trial of leadership, where Kale would need to inspire others and make critical decisions. But for now, he rested, knowing that he had faced Zephora's shadows and emerged stronger. Humans had shown they could stand among the stars, not just as explorers, but as beings capable of greatness. And somewhere above, Princess Lyra smiled once more. Aware that the young human warrior had survived not only the dangers of the trial, but also the judgment of her people, proving that humanity had a place on Xiphora, and perhaps in her heart as well. The day dawned over Xiphora like a blaze of gold and violet, the floating islands casting long, moving shadows across the glowing cities. Kale walked through the palace corridors, feeling both anticipation and unease. The trial of leadership awaited, but it was more than a test. It was a moment of truth. His presence had begun to unsettle some of the Zephoran nobles, who whispered among themselves, plotting quietly in the shadows. Kale's reflection in the crystalline walls showed a young man determined to prove himself, not only for his own honor, but for all humanity. He had survived the trial of wisdom and the trial of courage. Now, he would face a trial that demanded strategy, diplomacy, and inspiration. Princess Lyra awaited him in the central hall. She greeted him with a nod, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp. "Today," she said, "you will lead a group of Zifferans through a simulated crisis. They will test your judgment, your decision-making, and your ability to unite differing minds. Fail, and the nobles may question your place here. Succeed, and you will gain not only respect, but influence." Kyle nodded. He had never led a group of Zifferans before, but he had confidence in one thing. Humans could think differently, adapt quickly, and inspire loyalty through action and example. The simulation began. Kyle and his team were transported to a holographic projection of a floating city under threat. A storm of energy, rare and dangerous on Zephora, was approaching. Buildings could collapse, citizens needed rescue, and decisions had to be made in seconds. The nobles assigned to him were skilled but stubborn. They clung to tradition, relying on strict protocols and hierarchy. Kyle quickly realized that following their methods alone would fail. He stepped forward, speaking calmly. "We need to act quickly, but we must also adapt. Follow my instructions, and we will protect as many as we can." At first, the nobles resisted. Some whispered that humans could not understand Zephoran cities or their systems. Kale's human perspective, however, proved to be the key to saving time and lives. He guided the team to use unconventional pathways, redirecting energy flows to stabilize structures and coordinating citizens to safer platforms. The simulation intensified. The storm grew stronger, and failures could mean disaster. Kale remained composed, using logic, quick thinking, and creativity. One section of the city was about to collapse, trapping hundreds. Kale noticed a series of floating conduits that no Zifferan would normally use. They were considered risky. Kale assessed the situation. "We can use these conduits," he said confidently. "It is dangerous, but it is the fastest way to reach them. Trust me." Some nobles hesitated, but Kale's calm determination inspired them. They followed him, moving quickly across the glowing conduits. Kale reached the trapped citizens first, helping them onto stable platforms and guiding the group back to safety. The simulation ended and the energy storm dissipated. The hall erupted in cheers. The nobles who had doubted him could not hide their surprise. Kyle had not only completed the task, but saved far more lives than tradition would have allowed. Humans, it seemed, had a talent for innovation that even Zifferans could admire. Princess Lyra approached him, her eyes bright with approval. "Kale," she said, "you have done what many thought impossible. You led with courage, insight, and strategy. You have shown that humans are not only capable of surviving in our world, they are capable of leading and inspiring." Kale bowed. "I only did what I could, Princess. Your people taught me that strength is not only in power, it is in unity, in understanding, and in taking responsibility." Lyra smiled. "And yet, there are those who will still oppose you. Some nobles do not welcome the rise of an outsider. They see you as a threat, and threats breed resistance. You must be ready." Kyle understood. His success had made him a symbol of humanity's potential and of what could happen when different worlds worked together. But it had also drawn the attention of those who feared change. Later, as Kale walked through the palace gardens, he sensed movement in the shadows. A group of nobles who had opposed him met in secret, whispering plans to discredit him, to challenge his position, and perhaps even endanger him during the final trial. Kale's instincts told him that danger was not only part of the trials, it was woven into the politics of Zephora itself. Kale was not afraid. Humans were resilient. They adapted, they learned, and they could face challenges that others considered impossible. He knew he would have to use his strength, intelligence, and humanity to navigate the growing tension. That evening, Princess Lyra met him on a high balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Zephora shimmered like stars fallen to the ground, and the floating islands glowed softly in the night. "You have done well, Kyle," she said, "but tomorrow will test more than your skills. It will test your ability to unite allies, to face opposition, and to make choices that could affect many lives. The final challenge is not just a trial, it is a rehearsal for reality." Kale nodded. "I am ready. I will not let humanity falter, and I will do what is right, for your people, for mine, and for both our worlds." Lyra's eyes softened, her usual cool demeanor touched with something warmer. "Humans are unpredictable," she said, "and yet in you, I see hope. You may survive Zyphora's trials, and perhaps more." As Kale looked out over the city, he felt a deep sense of responsibility. This world was unlike anything he had ever known. The stakes were higher than simple survival. He was proving that humans could rise to meet challenges, adapt to new worlds, and earn respect through action, courage, and heart. Kyle knew the next day would bring confrontation, but he also knew this. Humanity had arrived on Zephora not as visitors, but as equals. And no force, whether natural, political, or cultural, could diminish what he represented. Above, in her chambers, Princess Lyra watched the stars and Kale's distant figure. She had chosen wisely, or perhaps fate had. The young human warrior had proven himself in ways few could imagine. And when the final trial came, both she and Kale would discover that bridges between worlds were stronger when built with courage, trust, and human spirit. The night settled over the floating islands, glowing softly as Kale prepared for the challenges ahead. Tomorrow, the confrontation would begin. And for the first time, he realized that survival on Zyphora was not enough. To thrive, he would need to unite hearts, overcome envy, and show the true strength of humanity. The sun rose over Zyphora with brilliant golden light reflecting off the floating islands, casting long shadows over the city. Today was the final challenge, the moment Kale had been preparing for since he first stepped onto the alien planet. It was more than a trial. It was a test of leadership, courage, and unity, with the eyes of the entire planet upon him. Kale stood in the central plaza, surrounded by the nobles who had once opposed him, the citizens of Zyphora, and, of course, Princess Lyra. The atmosphere was tense. Rumors had spread overnight. Some nobles whispered that Kale was unworthy, an outsider who should not be allowed to influence Zyphora's future. Others, having witnessed his previous triumphs, were quietly impressed. Lyra stepped forward. "Today," she said, her voice ringing across the plaza, "Kyle will face the final trial, the trial of unity. He must lead an effort to resolve a crisis threatening our people, showing that wisdom, courage, and cooperation can overcome even the greatest danger. Humans and Zephyrians alike will watch, and his actions will speak louder than words." Kyle nodded. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also a surge of determination. Humanity had arrived on Zephora not as weak visitors, but as equals, capable of achieving greatness. Today would prove it to everyone. The challenge began immediately. A sudden energy storm erupted over the floating city. A real one this time, not a simulation. Platforms swayed dangerously, energy streams crackled unpredictably, and parts of the city risked collapse. Panic rippled through the crowds. Kyle's heart pounded, but he did not falter. He knew humans could inspire others in moments like these, and that was his greatest advantage. Kyle ran to the nearest platform, rallying the frightened citizens. "Stay calm. Follow me," and we will reach safety together." His voice carried authority, yet warmth, and people responded. Humans could speak with courage and clarity in a way that calmed others, a strength Xiphorans had never seen from an outsider. Nearby, a group of nobles attempted to organize a response using rigid protocols, but Kyle quickly assessed the situation. He realized that following tradition alone would be too slow. He combined human adaptability with Xiphoran technology. Using energy conduits, floating platforms, and careful guidance, Kale led citizens to safe zones, avoiding the most dangerous currents of the storm. Lyra observed silently from a high balcony, her eyes fixed on Kale. She saw how he did not act recklessly, but calculated every move with care, balancing risk with the need for swift action. She realized that his human ingenuity and courage were what made him truly remarkable. Suddenly, a floating bridge connecting two key platforms began to collapse. A group of Xiphoran citizens was trapped on the far side. Without hesitation, Kale leaped onto the unstable bridge, moving quickly to guide them to safety. Sparks of energy flew around him and the bridge shook. But Kyle's focus never wavered. The citizens were saved, and the crowd below erupted in cheers. Even the nobles who had opposed him could not hide their admiration. Humans they saw were capable not only of surviving Xiphora's challenges, but of leading and protecting others in ways that even the most skilled natives could not always manage. Kyle reached the central plaza, where the heart of the city's energy grid threatened to overload. Failure to stabilize it could cause widespread destruction. Using a combination of human ingenuity and Xiphoran technology, Kyle analyzed the grid, rerouting energy flows and preventing catastrophe. He moved quickly, explaining his plan to the nobles and citizens assisting him. They followed without question, inspired by his calm determination. Finally, the storm subsided. The city was safe. Platforms stabilized, energy streams calmed, and the citizens cheered for Kale, who stood in the heart of the plaza, breathing heavily but smiling. He had succeeded in the trial of unity, not alone, but by inspiring cooperation between humans and Xiphorans. Princess Lyra descended to stand beside him. The crowd fell silent as she spoke. Kale has proven more than skill or courage. He has shown that strength comes from unity, that intelligence combined with bravery and empathy can overcome any challenge. Humans are not only visitors to Xiphora, they are partners, capable of greatness. Kale bowed deeply. "Thank you, Princess Lyra. I did what I could because your people trusted me, and because humanity never gives up. Together, we achieved what alone we could not." Lyra smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "You have earned more than respect, Kale. You have earned trust, admiration, and perhaps something more." Her gaze softened as she looked at him. "You will always have a place here on Xiphora, not just in our world, but in my life as well." Kyle felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had come as a young warrior from Earth, uncertain of his place among the stars. Now he stood recognized not just for skill or courage, but for humanity itself, its creativity, courage, and heart. The nobles who had opposed him approached cautiously. Some bowed, others offered nods of respect. Kyle understood their shift. Humans had proven they could not only survive alien worlds, but lead, inspire, and unite. That evening, Kale and Lyra walked together across a balcony overlooking the glowing city. The floating islands shimmered in the night, reflecting the soft light of Xiphora's twin moons. The city, once full of tension and doubt, now buzzed with hope. "You were brave," Lyra said softly, "and clever. But more than that, you showed a heart that cannot be ignored. Xiphora will remember this day." Kyle smiled. "I only did what humans do. We adapt, we learn, and we face what challenges come our way. But I couldn't have done it without your guidance." Lyra reached out, touching his arm lightly. No, Kyle. You did it yourself. Humans are capable of more than we imagined. And now, perhaps together, we can show both our worlds what is possible. Kyle looked out at the city, glowing and alive, and then back at Lyra. He realized that this was more than a personal bond. It was a symbol of unity between worlds. The humans were not intruders. They were equals. And together with the Zephyrians, they could build a future filled with cooperation, understanding, and shared strength. Then let us begin, Kale said quietly, his voice full of hope. Lyra smiled. Yes, let us begin. As the night settled over Zephora, Kyle felt a deep sense of purpose. He had faced trials, danger, and opposition, yet he had emerged stronger. Humanity had proven itself not only to survive, but to thrive among the stars. And by his side was Princess Lyra, whose faith and trust had helped him succeed. In that moment, Kale knew the future was bright, for humans, for Zephyrians, and for the bond they had forged across the stars. Together, they would explore, protect, and inspire, showing that courage, intelligence, and the heart of humanity could reach beyond worlds, shaping destinies in ways no one had ever imagined. The stars above shimmered as if acknowledging the promise of this new partnership, and somewhere in the distance, new adventures awaited, adventures where humans would continue to shine as heroes among the stars, led by courage, wisdom, and an unyielding spirit. Kale and Lyra stood together, looking toward the horizon, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it. Not as alien and human, not as outsider and princess, but as equals united by trust, respect, and the boundless possibilities of the universe.